The clock on the wall ticked steadily, but Aryan barely noticed. He was lying on his bed, scrolling through his phone, switching between games, memes, and messages from friends. His textbooks lay untouched on his desk, buried under a pile of snack wrappers and doodled notebooks. Tomorrow was his final exam, one of the most important ones of the year. But Aryan had told himself the same thing every night for the past week. I'll start studying tomorrow. And just like every other night, tomorrow never came. That night, exhaustion finally pulled Aryan into a restless sleep. But as soon as he closed his eyes, he found himself in a strange place, an empty classroom, dimly lit, with a giant clock hanging on the wall. The hands of the clock weren't moving. A voice echoed through the room. It's time for your exam. Aryan turned around, and suddenly, a paper appeared in front of him. The questions were impossible, words jumbled, numbers floating off the page. He tried to write, but the pen in his hand wouldn't work. Panic set in. His classmates around him wrote furiously, their pages filling up while his remained blank. The giant clock on the wall started ticking again, but faster, minutes vanishing in seconds. He tried flipping through his textbook, but the pages were empty. He looked at the teacher, but her face was blurred, unreadable. Time's up, the voice whispered. The classroom vanished, and Aryan fell into darkness. With a jolt, Aryan woke up, drenched in sweat. His heart pounded as he looked at the time, 2 a.m. His exam was just a few hours away. The nightmare wasn't real, but the fear it left behind was. He imagined himself sitting in the real exam hall, staring at questions he didn't know the answers to, feeling that same helplessness. Reality crashed down on him. He had wasted all his time. Every second he spent watching videos, playing games, and telling himself later was a second lost forever. Without thinking, Aryan jumped out of bed, grabbed his books, and started studying like never before. The next morning, Aryan sat in the exam hall. The questions were tough, but this time, they made sense. He could answer them, not perfectly, but enough. As he wrote, his eyes flickered to the clock on the wall. This time, he wasn't afraid of it. He understood something now. Time wasn't the enemy. It was the most precious thing he had. And from that day on, he swore never to waste it again. Because time lost is knowledge lost, and no one can turn back the clock.